Okay, so my name's Lee Clough, and this is Tony Me. You are the Academy Manager.
Academy Manager, yeah.
At York City FC. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. So just first of all, are you happy for this to be recorded?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much. Are you aware of the relative age effect?
Yep.
What is your current awareness of this?
The imbalance between the players born at the start of the year, whether that's the calendar year, which most of the European countries use for sport, and or the school years that we use over here, which puts us the other way around, unfortunately.
Okay. So just with that awareness, are you aware of the birth dates of players within your team? I mean, I think you were with your teams particularly.
You can see behind you we've got a board with every player, a photograph and name, but we don't record the dates of birth on there. We don't sign by date of birth. So if you were to ask me which of those, I was getting on for 120 kids there, which were born at the start of the year, which were born at the end and middle, I wouldn't have a clue.
Okay, so are you conscious of certain players within your group who may be at one end of the spectrum?
Well, you know, it's obvious to spot the big kids compared to the little kids, but even then, that might not be birth bias, that might just be genetics. So I actually don't know. I mean, you won't, obviously, this is just voice, but this is our under-16s group here.
Yeah.
We've got this lad here who's been offered a scholarship and already looks like a bloke and is built like a bloke. And at the same time you've got these types of players who look so much younger. But I couldn't tell you offhand, without getting the paperwork out, which of those is the older boy in the group. It may well be that the youngest looking, smallest boy in the group is the oldest.
And it could well be the opposite way with the older.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Keep that in mind. So obviously you've got an awareness of the relative age effects. Have you got any strategies in place that could help counter this with certain players?
Yeah, with what we tend to do, and it's sometimes physically based, it's sometimes technically based, but with the academy you are allowed to play players up or down.
Yeah. So
we've got a couple of boys, mainly at the younger end of the scale, who play down an age group because they are physically smaller. You would hope then that they would technically excel in the year group below, but that's not always the case. But ultimately, sooner or later, you've got to try and get them back in their peer group.
Yeah.
For us as a club, it really tends to be that under 16, because we don't run a reserve team, because we don't run a development squad of 19s to 21s. They've got to be able to hold their own at under 16, unfortunately, in order to make it into the under 18s.
Okay.
It's just a fact of life, I think, with lower league clubs.
Yeah. So you just mentioned that with the strategy put in place to help these players develop, especially in the younger ages, deal with that. When you go out and identify young players for these groups, is the relative age effect something that is a consideration, you feel? Players come in?
Not really. The scouts have been asked to look for players, not look for big players, small players, quick players. We obviously have characteristics at each age group, but it's mainly based around, can a kid play football? Obviously we then look at the dates of birth when we sign them, but it isn't a determining factor.
Okay. So you said there's certain characteristics, are there particular traits that you look for in certain players?
It's just a technical level.
Yeah.
You know, if we send a coach out to watch a grassroots game, I want him to come back to me with the name of the technically best player, not the biggest player on the pitch, and we convey that to our scouts through in-service training, by them coming and having a look our scouts come and watch our players train and come and watch our players in the games programme to see the type of player and the technical level that we're looking at. You know, I guess it's a bonus in some ways if you do get a technically good, physically advanced young player, but they're then under massive pressure to maintain that and stay ahead of the pack all the way through, and very often you find that they come back to the pack at some stage, be it physically or technically.
Okay. So you're aware of the relative age effective taking place. Are you aware of the potential reversal in sportsmen at certain ages?
No, it's not really something that I've looked at. Obviously, talk about people catching up.
Yeah.
And I've read some of the works around. It's not the fact that the older ones in the year are better in inverted commas. It's just that because they tend to be bigger, they get picked for more teams, which means they're exposed to more training. They then get more opportunity, etc., etc. So the big kids are the ones that go to the elite training camps, regional get-togethers, national get-togethers.
Yeah.
So they end up playing 2 or 3 times as much football as the younger ones. And I guess that in terms of the reversal of it, in some cases that might be why, because they get overexposed and they get burnt out.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, the literature we've read, it suggested that the younger players, should they survive that system of coming through this hockey, so they still get those opportunities to survive that system. Once they get to that higher level, they've almost developed these coping strategies to deal, and they've had to work hard to deal with it. They also benefit from working with older players.
Yeah.
So when they get to a certain level, and they physically get to the level, or biologically get there, they then have more potential.
Yeah.
And so they go on to higher level. Well, that's the theory anyway.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff that I've just finished reading, The Goldmine Effect.
I'm halfway through that.
Fantastic book, and that touches on things like that, where, you know, these kids that are used to being rejected or being borderline cases when it comes to regional selection and national selection, they can go one of 2 ways. They can either sack it and get all despondent with it, or they can just turn around and say, well, screw you, I'll prove that I'm capable anyway.
Yeah.
And like you say, they come through later and they've developed those mechanisms to get through that system, whereas the ones that are always being told, yeah, well, you're going to go on to the next stage, you're going to be in the North of England national, whatever it is, they're used to being told how good they are all the time, so that when the time comes for them to cope with rejection, it's a little bit more difficult because they're not used to it.
It's a new experience, okay. Cheers. Are you aware of what other clubs are doing, or certain strategies that other clubs have done in order to help deal with this relative age effect?
Only anecdotally.
Anecdotally.
You know, people will. I've only worked at one other pro club.
Okay.
And I was in not the same position that I'm in now, but I was in a position of some influence as head of coaching.
Yeah.
As 12 to 16s lead coach, and I've also done the 9s to 11s lead coach, and they had the same attitude there that I've got here, in that we recruit by how good players are, not by how big players are. But anecdotally, I do know that some clubs traditionally look for the biggest player in the age group.
Yeah.
So they physically dominate teams rather than technically dominate teams. But there's no correlation between what their academy's like and what their youth team or their first team are like, because it starts to even itself out.
Okay. If I was to give you some examples of things that certain clubs of doing, so for example at Ajax, there's a man there he's got something called your average age calculator, and their theory is if you can get teams to meet an average age of between certain barriers, then you can go and get older players, as long as you even out with younger players from a certain.
Yeah.
What would your feelings be on that, do you think?
would think that it still would bring with it certain problems. I don't see. For me, it's not a numbers game. That's, we're here to play football, not study maths.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm reading a book called Soccernomics at the moment, which goes the other way and starts to look at these types of things. I'm not that far into it yet that particular issue's come up, but I'm sure it will.
Okay.
So for me, I can kind of see the argument for it. Just other people have mooted, well, have an average performance level. But what's an average performance level? If you get one good player and one weak player, what are you going to bring the weaker player on, or are you going to make the better player worse and end up with something in the middle that's no good to anybody?
Okay. Just a couple of examples. I mean, there's a country, Belgium, in which they have squads particularly set, or with the criteria of if they are born in the second half of the selection year, then there's a squad for them.
Yeah.
And they can go and develop in that. There's a club currently in the Premier League where they have players where they don't base it on. There's no cut-off date from September onwards. They basically go by your 9-year-olds, your 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, your 12-year-olds, and as soon as you turn 10, you automatically go up to the next age group. So you have that experience of both being at the bottom, middle,
bottom and the top of the group. Yeah, I get that. I can see the argument for that.
Yeah.
For me, it doesn't really matter, does it? You can. What's the point in being at the top of the group or the bottom of the group? I just don't get it. I just think that footballers are footballers. You could get a January birthday footballer who is technically better than a December birthday footballer because he's better, because he practices more. What they do away from you is probably almost more important than what they do when they're with you, because you can control that to a certain degree. You can't control their practice time away from the academy. And I sometimes think that's where the EPPP goes too far, because especially at the Cat 1 clubs, the amount of time that the kids are being dictated to that they've got to attend. If they're going to be doing 10 hours a week in a Cat 1 academy, what opportunity is there for them to do other things which help them to develop? Where's the development in their social corner? If all they see is the same 16 to 20, 12-year-olds day in, day out. I did my academy manager study visit in Holland, and the club that I went to, even though it's a very lower level yo-yo club in fact, with the Eredivisie, their kids all go to the same school. They then travel from the school to the club to train in the evening, do their homework, have the tea, and then go home, and then the next day it all starts again. I just wonder where their social development is taken into consideration.
Yeah. So just with that in mind, just would you be open to the implementation of some of those ideas into your club?
I think it'd be an interesting experiment.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that that's what we're here for.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not sure at what point you would do it. If we did it, are the other clubs going to do it so that when you're playing your games programme, it becomes a level playing field?
Yeah.
I wouldn't rule anything out, and and a lot of the time it's not down to us. If the Football League turned around and said these are the rules, then these are the rules.
Yeah. Okay. Would you have any own ideas to put forward for dealing with this? Or you just...
Nah, I don't see that many late developers. No, let me qualify that. I don't see that many players that we've ever released, that I've personally been involved in ever releasing, coming back and making a difference.